One thing I'm realizing is a lot of us use the past as a means to get to the present, or it's a means to sort of understand ourselves and understand where we want to go. But I think that's sort of misplaced. I think that if you don't want to repeat the past, you have to be in the present. And that's not to say be negligent of what has happened in the past, but understand that that's the past. I think a lot of times we have to learn to let yesterday to be yesterday in order to sort of move forward with our life, in order to sort of move forward with our development. I'm finding that with myself, especially, like, the past is not a defining principle, or at least it shouldn't be treated as such. I think that if we want to overcome what has happened in the past, or overcome who we were in the past, overcome any type of thought process that we had in the past, we have to learn how to be present enough to make something new. And I think that that constant reference to what was and that constant living in those feelings of the past perpetuates it. I think in a lot of ways we get caught up in the loops of the past and ought to repeat it just in those loops alone, just in our thought process, just in everything. At the end of the day, nothing changes if nothing changes. If we're constantly referencing the past and trying to build the present, then all we're going to do is recreate the past. And that's why I think what isn't resolved always repeats. I feel like any type of resolution has to happen in the present moment. I don't think it's necessarily about repeating the past or trying to build from the past, but recognizing what's here in the present. Recognizing that, any type of growth and any type of change you want to have, any type of development you want to instantiate with yourself is possible. And it has to happen right here and now. And I think it's really just about putting yourself beyond who you were in the past. Having your goals and aspirations and feelings about yourself be entirely new. And I think that takes either meditation or takes either just being present enough to see the way in which you thought about yourself that contributed to your undoing in the past. To move forward from anything, we have to learn how to let go. And I think that includes of letting go of who you are, letting go of yourself in a way. Because if you don't let go of yourself in this way, I feel like you're holding on to your past identity, holding on to who you were, holding on to the parts of yourself that you're actually trying to change. And to do anything is to give yourself enough freedom, enough liberty to be entirely new. I feel like we all recognize that we're renewed by each and every one of our situations in a sense of every time you experience something, every time you encounter a situation, you figure out new parts of yourself. You figure out the way in which you reacted to something new, and in that way you've opened more space in yourself. And I think it's important to open enough space to allow entirely new possibilities for yourself, to allow an entirely new person to emerge in a way. Like I said it in a video before, but like cutting off the old version of yourself and to the point there's new life there. And I think that's very true. Like, you really have to commit to being a new person, or commit to being present with yourself enough to overcome your tribulations of the past. I feel like those constant references to what was is what keeps us in what was, and stops us from truly looking at what could be. And I think in any way to acknowledge what could be is to embrace the present moment, to embrace that you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you know you are here. And if you know you are here, then that's the only thing that you ought to change. That's the only thing that you ought to have attention towards. And I think that the greatest intention that we can have with ourselves in this regard is to expand our definition, to give ourselves a little bit more so we can get a little bit more, put ourselves a little bit more into the life we live. And one thing I've been doing to do this is actually practicing meditation, and actually taking a step away from my phone, social media, and anything that I would have used in my past to define myself, or to, get caught back up in those loops. I find that, the very act of waking up in the morning sometimes is a reaffirming principle for a lot of people. And in saying that, I mean that when we wake up in the morning, some people, go instantly on your phone, or you go instantly to the things that make you feel like yourself, or keep you grounded in who you were. I find that it's important to sort of, not necessarily just in waking up, but to, you know, present yourself with new experience. Present yourself with actions that correspond to this new version of yourself that you want to have, that you want to perpetuate. Otherwise, you're going to be doing the same things that your mind registers or with your old version of yourself, and in that way, you're going to get caught in those flows. And that's why I think meditation is also important in this regard. But in regards to how I thought about meditation before, I don't necessarily know if I got it 100% correct. I'm realizing that meditation isn't necessarily just about, sitting still. It's not about, just feeling like yourself either. I feel like it's about letting go of yourself, letting go of your certain definitions and characteristics. So when I meditate, when a lot of people meditate, they find discomfort in it. And I think that very discomfort that they find with meditation sometimes is a representation of their, wants to conform to their old self. I feel like when I meditate, the only reasons that I get up for meditation are either what used to be because I wanted to check my phone or do something like, oh, I could be doing this, something that I had previously done, or I could be doing this, or a plethora of reasons. But I feel like that constant trying to escape from what is new, that constant trying to escape from the unknown, is what contributes to us constantly conforming to the known, conforming to what we already know. And I think if we always conform to what we already know, then we have no way of getting things that are new, no way of attaining or living a life that's characteristic of a new self or of a new mentality. That's why I feel like the overall importance isn't to live in the past. It's to live in the present so you don't repeat what has happened in the past. And I don't even want to talk about the future because I feel like time is very relative. I feel like our constant reference to the past is sort of unwarranted because the past doesn't exist anymore. The past was a present moment and we were present for it then. So it's important to be present for ourselves now so we don't repeat that. And I feel like that's the only way. I feel like people always question like, oh, how can I implement this into my life? Or how can I, overcome this negativity in my situations? Be present enough to make the choice. And I don't want to necessarily say that, all negativity can be overcome just by that choice you make. But I feel like it's a practice thing. I feel like we've taught ourselves to be a certain way, and at the end of the day, it's about breaking the habit of being yourself. We've taught ourselves to be so affirmed with this negativity, so affirmed with these certain aspects of ourselves that we try to escape from, that at the end of the day, we escape from ourselves. That's why I feel like it's important to confront whatever it is. Confront it not in the sense of saying, oh, this is part of me, but saying that I'm beyond what this is. This isn't me, but looking at it while saying that. Being there with it while instantiating your new growth or positing whatever it is that you want to happen. That's why I feel like affirmation is important because you can't replace a vacancy in yourself with nothing. It's likely to get filled with whatever it is that you cast out in the first place. That's why I feel like renovation is always the point. It's not about getting rid of your old parts. It's about making them new. Turning yourself into something new because at the end of the day, this isn't changing. Like who I was a week ago is different from who I am today. But I didn't get rid of any part of myself in a sense. I made everything new. I made intention to change my mind and change my patterns to change my perspective. Because if we can recognize that our thought dictates our perspective and our perspective dictates our reality, then at the end of the day, our thoughts impact our reality. What we think in a way is what we are. And I say the opposite in sometimes videos because it's not. I feel like we shouldn't identify with our mind, but if we are going to use our mind as a defining principle, which some people don't have control over, I myself don't have control over all the time, then it's important to posit some type of positive thoughts within our head so we can use them to our advantage. And I find that the best way to instill some type of positivity within yourself is to be present enough to do so. To be present in the moment and say, okay, I'm grateful that the world works in my favor. I'm grateful that I'm confident. I'm grateful that this, that, and the other. Instilling some type of faith within yourself to allow you to traverse the world in a way that you find befitting of you. Otherwise, you're going to be walking in your past self and expecting entirely different outcomes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And if we don't instill some type of change within who we are, then what we experience is never going to be any different. And you can see this throughout the world because I feel like it's not a matter of, your circumstance or your environment altogether either. Because I feel like if you have the same mentality and you are in a better place, you're still going to have that same mentality. if you are in a super negative place and you're used to pointing out every single negative thing about that place, and you move to somewhere positive, you're gonna find negativity there too, even if it's just in yourself. And that's why I feel like it's not really about where you are, but in terms of like your physical space, but where you are in terms of your inner space. How you treat yourself within this present moment, the stillness that's inside of you, and how you affirm that, how you give care to that, how you know, show affection towards yourself in the present moment. Because I feel like if you can't do that at the very least, or if you don't do that at the very least, then your life is going to be filled with your expectations of the external world and filled with the value of the external world. You'll find that everything that you use to value yourself is not within you, and it's not characteristic of you either. That's why I feel like it's important to let go of that sort of past definition and that past association, and truly live in what is new, and truly live in the present moment. This is not to say don't care about things of the past. It's not to say, forget everybody you used to interact with or isolate yourself to some great extent, but to say give yourself enough to get. And sometimes it's difficult to sort of move forward with it. And I'm finding not necessarily difficulty, but I'm understanding its difficulty, because it truly takes a commitment to become someone new, because you were so committed into being who you were before. It takes actual effort to sort of break those bonds that we have to the previous moments, bonds that we have towards certain things. And it's about instilling love, self-love at that, enough to be disciplined about our own change, enough to be disciplined about the present moment, enough to move forward from it. Because if we don't, then, like I said, all we're going to do is repeat the past. The only way to build the future is to be present enough to do it. The only way to overcome the past is to be present. I feel like all of our answers would be, or all of our questions would be answered if we would just be present enough to listen. Sometimes you have to give yourself audience enough to no longer perform. And sometimes the performance isn't even for others, but more so for ourselves. We get so addicted to the way we used to be that we want to act in accordance to that. But we have a disdain, we have a discomfort with that at the same time. So the importance isn't necessarily just to go with the flow in this sense, but to understand your own flows. Understand what contributed to it, and understand what you need to do in order to change that flow into something better. Change that flow into something more intentional, more filled with you, more filled with your love, more filled with your care, more filled with you. And I think that's what the present moment does. Through meditation, through whatever, I found that, being present with myself and giving myself actual time and actual care and attention allows me to see the parts of myself that are seeking a change. Parts of myself that I want to change, and I know that the only thing that I truly need to do to change those is to do my best about them. That means do whatever it takes, of course, within a certain degree of understanding, certain degree of caution, and be present enough to do it. And that's all. In creating someone new, you don't always want to have to reference the past. Who you are is always going to be here. And I feel like when it comes to our negative characteristics, we try to neglect them, or we try to run from them, I'll say. But what we run from has already caught us. You don't run from what you want to conquer. You have to be there to do it. So this is all to say that if you don't give yourself some type of presence with whatever is seeking out change, it won't be able to seek it out. And if you don't give yourself any volition in trying to change, or any volition in letting yourself go, then who you are is always going to be held on to. And in that way, it is never going to be able to be let go. One last point. I feel like we allow our parts to define our whole as well. Like, we let one negative thought about ourselves, or one negative attribute of who we are, sort of explain the whole of our character. And we think that in letting that go, and letting that negativity go, we're letting go of all of us. And I don't think that's true either. I think change can be very intentional and very focused. as long as we're focused and intentional when doing it. At the end of the day, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much. If you guys didn't make it this far, thank you anyway. I really hope you guys did enjoy this, and I hope you guys are taking the steps necessary in order to change yourself for the better. I'm trying to do the best I can. So, yeah, stay tuned in. I think there's a lot of good things on the way. And yeah, appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. And take care.